I bought a house thinking it would be for my parents, but I was shocked to find out later that it had been given to my sister instead. I'm 29, and I've been paying the mortgage on a house I believed was theirs, but it turns out, they quietly transferred it to my 27-year-old sister without telling me. I couldn't believe how far they went to help her. Growing up, I always felt they treated her better, but this made everything clear. While I was expected to be responsible and work hard, my sister Tiffany was spoiled and allowed to do whatever she wanted without much pressure. My parents put a lot into my education. They didn't let me use my savings or take student loans. Instead, they borrowed money themselves, saying interest rates were too high. I thought they were just trying to help me avoid debt. But once I graduated and got a steady tech job, it felt like they expected me to pay them back. They often reminded me of their sacrifices, not just to make me grateful, but to make me feel guilty and push me into doing what they wanted. Not long into my job, I visited home during the holidays. At dinner, my dad said they wanted me to buy them a house because they had spent all their savings on my education and couldn't keep paying rent. I felt trapped. It hadn't even been a year since I started working, and I still lived with roommates. Buying a house was a huge step. I told them, "Dad, I just started working. I can't afford a house." But he insisted, "We raised you to set goals and achieve them." My mom added, "Without us, you wouldn't be where you are. It's time to repay that." I wanted to shout, "Who asked you to sacrifice so much?" But I didn't. I stayed quiet and started pulling away, stopped visiting, only answered emergency calls, and blamed work for my distance. Still, the guilt stayed with me, so after 6 years of saving and working hard, I bought them a small but nice house. I thought this would finally give me peace. For 5 years, I paid the mortgage, often sending more than required to pay it off faster. I had dreams of my own, buying a home, traveling, starting a family, but I put all of that aside to meet their expectations. Eventually, I visited them again after many long work weeks. I saw Tiffany's car in the driveway and thought maybe we'd have a nice family visit, but when she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, joking. "Oh, Mom and Dad moved out. I live here now," she said casually, wearing pajamas and lounging on the couch. I was confused. "What do you mean? This is their house." "They gave it to me, didn't they tell you? I needed it more, with the baby on the way." I was stunned. The house I worked years to buy for my parents was now hers, and no one had told me. I left and went straight to my parents' new place. When my mom opened the door, I couldn't hide my frustration. "Tiffany told me you gave her the house I've been paying for. How could you do that without telling me?" My mom calmly said, "Come in, let's talk. I didn't think you'd be this upset." Inside, I asked again, "Why would you give her the house without saying anything?" She replied, "You're doing well, you don't need to worry. Tiffany needs stability, especially with a baby coming. This house gives her that." Her words made me angry. "I don't care. It's not my job to take care of her and her family. That's her and her husband's responsibility. We grew up in rentals and we're fine." My dad joined the conversation, defensive. "Tiffany didn't get the same help you did. We paid for your college, not hers, so this is fair." I snapped, "That's her fault. She dropped out of high school. Why am I paying for that?" They brushed it off. "You can always buy another house." I was shocked. "That's not the point. You don't get to decide how I spend my money." Their complete disregard for my effort and sacrifices left me speechless. I left and checked into a hotel to cool off and think. That was last Friday. It's now Sunday, and I'm supposed to fly home Tuesday. I thought about leaving early, but I realized I still had things to clear up, especially the mortgage. I'd been paying extra, and I needed to know how much was really left. Before visiting my parents, I texted my dad to ask how much was left on the mortgage. He said he'd check with the bank. I told him, "Take me to the bank tomorrow. I want to see it myself." Even though I didn't want to keep paying, I needed to understand what was going on. The idea of paying for a house that isn't legally mine felt unfair, especially since my parents and sister seemed to ignore how hard I'd worked. At the bank, I got an even worse surprise. The extra money I'd been sending wasn't used to pay off the mortgage. My dad had been using it to pay their rent instead. I was crushed. I had been living on a tight budget, saving and sending extra money every month to finish the loan early, but it turned out that all that effort had been wasted. The bank manager confirmed that I had paid more than double the required amount each month. My dad at first looked confused but then admitted it was true. He said, "Yes, the records are correct. You were right, we'll talk later. I was stunned. Later, when we were alone, he asked, why did you mention the extra payments? Were those meant for the mortgage? I raised my voice. Of course, why else would I send extra money? He replied, I thought it was for our living expenses. That response hit hard. Whether it was a mistake or on purpose, I felt betrayed. My dad had taken the money I worked hard for and used it without asking. I sat down, overwhelmed. He tried to downplay it. It's not that big of a deal. I snapped, not a big deal. You pushed me into buying a house, gave it to Tiffany without telling me, and used my money to pay your rent. He defended himself. We paid for your college. This is just a little payback. I still paid the mortgage on time. What's the issue with using the extra money? I was furious. That money was to pay off the mortgage early, not for rent. I walked out of the bank and went straight to the subway. My phone kept buzzing with calls and messages from my mom, asking me to come home to talk, but I ignored them. I needed to stand up for myself. Their actions had gone too far. I went home shaking with anger. When the next month came, I didn't send the mortgage payment. If Tiffany owned the house, it was time for her to take responsibility. I blocked my parents, Tiffany, and her husband. I needed peace. I was done being used. Soon, my parents noticed the missed payment. They tried calling me from new numbers and even got friends involved, but I stood firm. They needed to deal with the mess they created. A few days later, I came home from work and found my dad at my door, angry. You can't just walk away. You owe us. We gave you everything. I told him, I've paid more than enough. I've paid more for that house than you ever did for my college. I owe you nothing. He called me ungrateful, but I didn't let him guilt me. I'm done, I said. I'm not paying your rent or any more bills. You treated me like an investment. I'm not your asset. I got in my car and left. I waited before going back home, afraid he might still be around. Later that night, he was gone. After that, my phone blew up again. My mom left voicemails, and Tiffany sent a long message saying I was selfish for not helping, but I felt free. Soon, they couldn't keep up with the payments, Tiffany couldn't afford the mortgage, and my parents struggled with rent. I knew this would happen, it was only a matter of time. About a year later, I heard the house was being sold. My parents used what little savings and retirement money they had to try and keep it, but it wasn't enough. They asked Tiffany and her husband to help, but Tiffany said the house was a gift and refused to pay. That's when my parents finally realized what they'd done. The truth came out, and everything fell apart. Eventually, they sold the house at auction. My dad got some money from the sale, but the damage was done. I knew I'd never get back what I paid, and I accepted that. I had fully repaid my college costs, plus interest. That was enough. From then on, I let go of any guilt. I had done my part. My parents now live in a smaller place, trying to save and manage their retirement on their own. They've also stopped supporting Tiffany. When she asked for help, they said no. That was a big change. As for me, I focused on my own life. I got my own apartment, saved up, and started planning to buy a home, one that's truly mine. Leaving my family behind was hard, but necessary. I learned that sometimes, the people closest to you can take advantage of your kindness. This chapter of my life was painful but full of growth. I have no regrets. I've made peace with the past. I deserve respect, no matter who I'm dealing with, family or not. My family's decisions led to consequences they now have to face, and I finally have the freedom to live life on my own terms.